Hello students, today in this video we are going to start with the chapter 4 of class 6, that is sorting materials into group. So objects around us. So this will be our first concept, object around us. So there is a vast variety of objects everywhere. All objects around us are made up of one or more materials. A thing can be made of different materials. Many things can be made from the same material. So here you have been absorbed object and material. So object is different and a material is different. Yes. So material is nothing but a raw substance. So by using that raw substance, what and all the substance or what are all objects you can make. For example, if I take wood, wood is a material which can be obtained from nature. Correct. So wood is a material. From that wood, what and all objects I can prepare. What and all objects I can prepare. So those are called as objects. And the raw things what are you using, we are called as materials. So I think you got an idea of objects and materials. Now we will start with the lesson. There is a vast variety of objects everywhere. Yes. So when you look around you, so at the place of sitting, if you look around you, you can see n number of objects around you, right? So all the objects around us are made up of one or more materials. Yes or no? So when you see all the objects, so that object should be made up of one of the other material. Yes. So it may be made up of one material, or it can be made up of two or more materials, using two or more materials. Yes. So a thing can be made of different materials. So one object can be made up of different materials. Many things can be made from the same material. As I told you, wood is an example. From the wood you can make chair, you can make table, you can make desk, you can make cupboard, you can make etc. N number of things you can make, correct? So with the same material you can make n number of objects. Similarly, n number of objects can be made up of n number of materials also. Yes. Yes, you can see here. If you look around, you can see in the school. For example, I'm taking in a school. In a school, if you look around, you can see desk, chair, books, notebooks, pencil case, backpack, scissors, compass, pins, clips, pencils, color pencils, pencil sharpener, stapler, calculator, ballpoints, pen, correct? Highlighter, rubber, eraser. N number of things you can see around you in the class. Yes. So all are made up of different materials. Next we have classification. What is the classification? So the process of sorting and grouping things according to some basics is called as classification. So we need to group. We are going to group the materials, group the objects. So based on some basis, it may be a shape, it may be appearance, it may be a color, it may be a texture. Correct? So based on some basis, we are going to differentiate the material, or we are going to group the materials. So that concept is called as classification. So basis on group. So we can group materials on the basis of similarities and differences in their properties. So here we are going to differentiate some of the materials based on the similarities and the differences. So each material has its own properties that may differ from other. However, some properties may be common to one or more material. So when you compare you and your friend, some qualities may same, but some qualities may differ. Similarly, in the materials and objects also, some properties may similar and some properties may differ. Yes, next we are going to properties of materials. We have different properties. So we'll see what are the properties. Objects are made up of different materials. One material can be used to make different objects. This is possible because different types of materials have different properties. So for example, I take different materials as steel, iron, copper, wood, plastic, glass. These are the n number of materials. So from these n number of materials, we can make n number of objects. So we have to choose materials with the right properties based on what we want to use it for. For example, if I want to make a desk, I need to use a proper material. I need to see the properties of material. I can't make the desk by using the paper. I can't make a desk by using the glass, because the properties won't match. I want a strong desk. Can I use paper? Or I want a strong rack. I can use glass or I can use paper. No. So based on the properties or based on the thing what you need to do, you need to select the material. For example, a chalk made of wood or plastic would be no use of because it cannot be used to write on a blackboard. Yes or no? Chalk is a material. So if you want to write, you need to use chalk itself. You cannot make chalk piece from the wood and you can write. No, it won't possible. Understood? So this is an example. So materials have different properties like roughness, luster, transparency, solubility, flotation, attraction towards a magnet, conduction of heat, conduction of electricity. Yes, so these are some of the properties what we are going to study in this chapter. So let us study these properties one by one. Yes, so you can see appearance, hardness, soluble or insoluble, buoyancy, transparency. So these are the 5 properties which we are going to discuss in this chapter. Other properties you can discuss in the later chapters. Yes, first one is appearance. So based on appearance, we have 2 types, luster and non-lustrous. Lustrous and non-lustrous. So what do you mean lustrous and what do you mean non-lustrous? So luster is a shine of a material. All metals in pure state are shiny and said to possess luster. So all the materials in the pure state or when they extract, at that time they will be a shiny. So the shining materials are called as lustrous material. This property of metals is widely used in making of jewelries and other decorative articles. So if you want to make some decorative articles or jewelries, you can use this lustrous materials. For example, gold, silver, etc. So the materials like gold, silver and bronze have luster. So they are used as a making jewelry and attractive decorative articles. So similarly, the materials which does not have shine are called non-lustrous material. Example, wood, paper, etc. So these are non-lustrous materials. Next you have roughness. So materials can be rough or smooth. Rough materials have bumps or ridges on the surface which can be felt by touching them. So you can feel some objects by touching them. You can feel which object is soft and which object is hard, or which object is smooth or which object is rough. Correct. So on the rough surfaces you can see the bumps on that, ridges. So that will feel you it is rough. Example, a rough material are rock, sandpaper and bark of a tree. A glass sheet, flower petal and the surface of an apple are some of the examples of smooth surface. They have given examples of rough surface and smooth surface. Next, based on hardness. See, roughness is different, hardness is different. Roughness means smooth or rough. Hardness means hard or soft. So the materials which can be pressed easily are called soft, while some other materials which cannot be pressed are called hard. For example, sponge. Sponge is a soft material. You can compress, you can press. Similarly, if you take wood, you can't compress, you can press. So that is hard. Understood? For example, cotton is a soft while wood is a hard. Yes. See, hard and smooth surface. See here, it is rough and also hard. It is a rough surface and also a hard surface. It is a smooth surface, but it's not a soft. Correct? You cannot compress, you cannot press that. Okay? Next property is based on solubility. So what do you mean by solubility? Soluble substance. Substances that get dissolved in water are called soluble substance. So whatever the substances which will dissolve in water are called as soluble substances. Insoluble substance. Substances which do not dissolve in water are called insoluble substances. Okay. So for example, soluble substances we can take salt, sugar. Correct. So when you pour salt to water and stir it well, then you cannot see salt in the water. But still the salt is present in water, you cannot see. So this substances are called as soluble substances. Similarly, when you come to insoluble substances, so when you take sand and put it into your water and stir it well, you can still see the sand present in the water. So those substances are called as insoluble substances. Next we have miscible and immiscible. See, don't get confused. Soluble, insoluble is different. Miscible, immiscible is different. So miscible substances are those liquids which mix well with water are said to be miscible. For example, take water and vinegar, water and lemon juice, water and alcohol. So these are the substances which mix with water well. So after mixing, you can't differentiate. So those liquids are called as miscible liquids. But what about immiscible liquids? Substances which do not mix well with water are called immiscible. Example, oil and water, kerosene and water, petrol and water, diesel and water. So these substances which won't mix with water well. So those liquids are called as immiscible liquids. Yes, you can see the activity here. Soluble substance. And this is a term used to describe a substance that is dissolved to a significant extent in a solvent without stating how much actually will dissolve. So one more thing you need to understand here. Solute plus solvent. Here you need to understand what is solute and what is solvent. See here, solute, solution. See, in a solution, you will be having solute plus solvent. So what is solute, what is solvent? Solute example, salt. Solvent example, water. So when you mix salt with water, you will get salt solution. I will write an example here. So to obtain salt solution, you need to add salt plus water. So salt plus water becomes salt solution. So salt will be a solute and water will be a solvent. Understood? So this will be your main point you need to understand here. Solute plus solvent will always give you solution. Solute example salt, solvent example water. So only the water is called as universal solvent. Water will be called as universal solvent. Next, when come to insoluble substances, this is a term used to describe a substances that does not dissolve it to a significant extent in a solvent. So solvent is nothing but water. Okay, which substances which will not dissolve in water up to a certain extent, those materials are called, those substances are called as insoluble substances. Yes, here you can see soluble, insoluble. Soluble substances will mix homogeneously. Homogeneously means completely with all the solution particles it will mix. But insoluble, it will not melt, it will settle down. Yes, here you can see miscible and immiscible substances. So when you add a lemon juice or a vinegar or alcohol to this water, it will mix well. You cannot differentiate. But some immiscible liquids like this. So you can see like this, different layers you can see. So those liquids are called as immiscible liquids. Next property or next concept is buoyancy. So what is buoyancy? Certain materials float on water whereas others sink. This property of material to float on water is called as flotation. So as you all observe, some objects when you put on water, it will float, and some objects when you put inside the water, it will automatically sink. So those objects which will float and those objects which will sink, you need to understand or you need to make a list. Generally, materials like wood, leaf and feather float on water, whereas rock and metal sink. Some materials float in water while others sink. So example, materials like sand, sugar and salt sink in water. Similarly, materials like wax, oil and wood float on water. So this is all about buoyancy. This is all about buoyancy. So what makes something float or sink? Why some objects will sink? Why some objects will float? So that is the concept called as buoyancy. So you can see here, buoyancy is the ability to float in liquids. The beach ball is very buoyant whereas a marble is not buoyant at all. It's because the ball of air is less dense than the water. Correct? Yes or no? So why some objects float, why some objects sink? Because due to the concept called as buoyancy. So which objects have more buoyant, they will float. Which objects have less buoyant, which will sink. Next concept you have transparency. What do you mean by transparency? Different materials allow different amounts of light to pass through them depending on the property called transparency. So the material which allow the light and which won't allow the light. So the property of allowing the light through them are called as transparency. So based on transparency, materials can be of three types. What are the three types? Transparent, translucent and opaque. Three types are transparent, translucent and opaque. So materials that allow all the light to pass through them are called transparent materials. So the materials which allow complete light to pass through them are called transparent materials. Example, glass, water, acrylic sheet and cellophane paper are transparent. So if you hold a transparent object and when you hold a torch next to it, so all the light which is passing from the torch should pass through that object and come to the other side. So then that object is called as transparent object. See, for example, shopkeepers generally prefer to keep items like toffee, biscuits, sweets, etc. in transparent jars so that we can see them easily. Yes, you have observed, right? In the shops, all the chocolates, biscuits are kept in the glass cupboard so that the observer will observe these things. So the customer will observe, he can see easily. So those materials are called as transparent materials. So windows are usually made of glass so that light can pass through the home and light our rooms. So the windows glass also made up of transparent materials. So next, the materials that allow some light to pass through them are called translucent materials. So this is next concept. What is translucent materials? The materials which will allow only some part of light to pass through them. They are called as translucent materials. Example, oil, paper, colored glass, translucent materials. Okay. Next, the last concept is the materials that do not allow light to pass through them. They are called opaque materials. So those materials which do not allow any light to pass through them are called opaque materials. Example, wood, metal, leaf, stone and cardboard are opaque materials. So based on transparency, we have three concepts: transparent, translucent and opaque. So what do you mean by transparent? The materials which will allow complete light to pass through them are called transparent materials. What is translucent? The materials which will allow only some part of light to pass through them are called translucent materials. Then what do you mean by opaque? The materials which do not allow any light to pass through them are called opaque materials. Yes, you can see, you can observe here transparent. You can see completely. You can see here, right? You can see completely. So those objects are called as transparent. Here you can see partially. When compared to this is partially, correct? But here you cannot see anything. This part you cannot see anything. So those materials are called as opaque. Understood the difference? Transparent, translucent, and opaque. Next, I have explained you light, passing the light, correct? So this is a transparent material, translucent material, and opaque material. Now allow the light to pass through them. Here, whatever the rays which will come from this side, all the rays should pass through this side also. So those materials, if it allow, they are called as transparent materials. But when come to translucent, here you can see the number of rays, and here you can see the number of rays. Only some rays are passing through it. So that materials are called as translucent. Translucent, okay? But when you come to opaque concept, here you can see, here the number of rays is, here you can see the number of rays, correct? But here no rays are coming out of it because it is an opaque object. Understood everyone? So this is the concept of transparency. Yes. So we learned that materials differ in their appearance and then the way they mix in water or the other liquid. They may float or sink in water or may be transparent, opaque or translucent. Materials can be grouped on the basis of similarities or differences in their properties. So whatever the concept they have explained, I mean we have learned, they have given here. So we learned that materials differ in their appearance. It may differ in appearance. It may be different in the appearance, or it may be different in the way of mixing. Some may be soluble, some may be insoluble, some may be miscible, some may be immiscible. Correct? And they may be different in floating or sinking. Some materials will float, some materials will sink. Similarly, it may be depending on transparency. Some materials are transparent, some materials are translucent, some materials are opaque. Correct? So based on all these things, materials can be grouped on the basis of similarities and differences in their properties. So next, why do we need to group materials? Why we need to group the materials? This is a very important question. Why we need to group the materials? In everyday life, we often group materials for our convenience. At home, we usually store things in such a manner that similar objects are placed together. So in our home, we have a cupboard. So in the cupboard, so the dress what I use will be kept in separate wardrobe. The dress which my father will use will be kept at one wardrobe. The dress which will be used my brother will be kept at one wardrobe. Correct? So it will be different wardrobes. And we will be placing our related items in one wardrobes, correct? So it makes our work simpler, right? It makes our work simpler. And we should group the materials based on the properties or based on the usage, correct? For example, tools what we use, we will keep it separately. The medical things what we use, they will keep separately, correct? Yes, that is why we need to group the materials to make our work simpler. Correct. See here they are given. We often group materials for our convenience. Yes. So such arrangements help us to locate them easily. So if you group together, if you group some items at one particular place, it makes you easier to locate them. See, all of a sudden I want a antiseptic solution. I can't go complete home and search for antiseptic solution. If I have grouped somewhere at some place, I can go directly and pick it up. Correct? Similarly, how you will go to a shopping. So if you go to shopping or a shopping mall, there all the items are grouped together. Correct? So men's ward separate, women's ward separate, children's ward separate. Correct? No need to search the materials, also no need to search the dresses. So it will be all grouped together. Correct? It makes your work simpler. It will be easy to locate. Similarly, a grocer usually keeps all the types of biscuits at one corner of his shop, all shops at other, while grains and pulses are stored at some other place. This is what I told you. In a shop, if you go to a shop, all the biscuit items they will be keeping separately, all the cereals and pulses keeping separately, all the snacks items they will be kept separately. So this makes the customer to access the materials easily. So this is one of the main advantage why we need to group the materials. Okay. There is another reason why we need to find such grouping useful. Dividing materials in groups make it convenient to study their properties and also observe any pattern in these properties. We will study more about this in higher classes. Okay, so by grouping the materials, we will understand the properties. So these properties what we can understand in the higher classes. Okay, so this is all about the sorting of materials. Hope you understood everyone. Thank you, children.